We would love that. And I'll introduce them in just a second. Whew, I don't know about where you guys are, but it is hot. I'm super warm right now.
Yeah, I wonder if Minnesota and San Diego are hot. Colorado's here. Vermont. Ooh, central Vermont. That's probably going to be humid. Hey, everyone. Maryland, Philly, Minnesota again.
Ooh, it's cold in New Zealand. I forget.
Oh, New Zealand.
Okay.
Awesome.
Judy's gonna have questions. We were just talking about New Zealand.
Oh, yeah. Adriana makes us jealous every week. Leader, all their good policies.
Yeah. I want to move there. I actually looked how to get a visa to work in New Zealand. Yeah, that's awesome. Velasco, Texas. I wonder where that's at. In north, middle, east, west, south Texas. Yeah, Weslaco, Texas. San Diego. Petaluma, California. Oh, we're hot here in California. Y'all, we're in Cali. It's hot.
Oh, Dawn from the UK. Welcome back. Thanks for coming all this way.
Manchester. Sacramento. Oh, it's hot in Sacramento. I saw the weather up there. Where's this? Rio Grande Valley. Oh, it's hot there too. Weslaco, Texas. Wonderful. Austin. Hello. Wales. Is Wales breezy today? I have a feeling, but I heard there's a big heat wave also in the UK. Yeah. Seattle. It's warm in Seattle. All
right, we'll give folks about 30 more seconds and then we'll start. So I want to get to it. We still got people signing in. All right, well, so thank you everyone. Welcome back. You know, I'm super excited about today. I was talking about it last week and tweeting about it. I'm super excited that my good friends Michelle and Judy are here from the Meaning Makers Collective. I adore and admire these ladies, and I'm really, really excited for them to share their knowledge and wondrousness with you. So I'm going to let them tell you a little bit more about themselves, and then they're going to share their screen with a little presentation, and then we're going to do some breakout, kind of our traditional setup. All right, ladies.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having us, Laura. Also, we're really excited, Michelle and I also put myself a timer. I'm a person that likes to enjoy time speaking with other people, and I really enjoy checking in at where physically you're located. It tells a story, at least right now, about the weather and how much we're all kind of going through this heat wave wherever it's at. And I just really do hope that wherever you find yourself today, you find yourself in some safety, some health, and some comfort, whatever that is and however that looks like to you. So Michelle, I think, is going to put up the slides. Yeah. Okay. So you'll see that coming up. We're really big on giving you some visuals because for me, at least, I tend to listen a lot, but it kind of stays with me a lot longer when I'm able to connect that to an actual visual. So I'll share a little bit about who we are. So wow, that picture, I really like the way I looking different there, but there's my picture and Michelle. And so what we are a small consulting company that's based out of here, California, Los Angeles specifically. Michelle and I have been educators for quite a long time. I've been a teacher, I've been a director of schools, and I've been a principal, specifically in high schools and specifically working with students with high levels of trauma, adversity, and really students in crises, like not even students at risk, really students that were, yeah, in a moment in their life or moments of their lives that were quite challenging. And primarily I've worked with students, Black and brown students in Los Angeles and in San Francisco. And so my lived experience up to this moment had really kind of got me to a place where this work is so hard. And I kind of didn't even realize just how taxing it had been on my body, my mental health, until I took a break from it and I left it after being a principal. And so for me, one of the things that really stuck about the importance of how can I be a better support to my educators, because I've been doing it for 18 years now, was how can I be a meaning maker to someone when you need it? How can I be there and help people make meaning of life as it is in that moment, as it was in the past, as it might be in the future? And how can I do that through some facilitation? And how can we do that through some teaching, some coaching of individual people and teams at schools, creating wonderful events or gatherings, meaningful retreats, and just meeting with people and doing some consulting of what they might need at the moment and how can we help. And so that's what really kind of brought us to this moment of the Meaning Makers Collective. And we're happy to be here today to see how we might make meaning of these current moments and of the way we do the work and what we think is creating cultures of care, and how do we honor and salute the people that work in schools, the actual adults that are there doing this work day in, day out, and how do we care for each other? How do we create those cultures of care? So that's us. And I do speak Spanish. I'm primarily a Spanish speaker. So sometimes you'll hear me do like a bilingual thing, or I talk out loud. And so if you speak Spanish, thank you for resonating with me in this way. And if you don't, just make some room for it. I would like to say that up front. Stay curious, and I do often translate myself in case I do that. So le vamos a dar sentido a la vida, which means in this moment, we're going to give life some meaning. And that's what Meaning Makers kind of translates for us. So I hope it resonates. And Michelle, if you wanted to say anything there, because I want to make sure your voice is in this room now.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm already feeling less nervous and more settled in to be here. Thank you, Judy. Yeah, just thanks that everything Judy said, that is why we're here. I have also been an educator, a teacher, an organizer of young people. Really, if I'm honest with myself, got into education to make systemic change. And so I found that as I was teaching, my role was often, I felt the most passionate about the things that happened between classes, after school, during professional development, really the times where we were holding each other, making meaning together, trying to figure out how to cope and how to thrive inside the system, and how to change the systems to make that more possible. And so that is really what we get to do in Meaning Makers. And I'm happy to be here and happy to meet all of you virtually.
Mm-hmm. So with that, we like to, let's see, I'll wait for the slide to come up. Well, as Michelle kind of, gets the technology going, and thanks for your patience with it. You know, we've been doing it for months, as most of you have, and just sometimes, ooh, that was my timer. I was good on time. So sometimes it gets tricked up a little bit. So what Michelle and I do in our process of coming together with folks we often don't really know, and we're building relationship with, is really setting an intention for our time together. We know that often, you know, all of you might be obviously really familiar with norms and having norms of collaboration and norms of the way you engage with others in your workplace. And so we feel a certain type of way about norms. We feel like, well, norms might be useful for some people. They still create kind of a sense of disconnection when someone might not be as familiar with the norm, or better said, not as practiced at being able to actually live into a norm. And so what ends up happening in a lot of spaces is a lot of policing of who's doing something right and who's not. And we're trying to dismantle some of that policing that lives inside of us, some of that power of how do we just embrace people into a space and moment. And so Michelle and I really believe that this way, the setting an intention is powerful. because it's exactly that. It's an intention, hoping we can hold it through. And if we can't, or if something else might happen, that we still set an intention of what we hope gets achieved here, and not in any way policing everyone. So what we say, and what helps me actually slow down, is to say it out loud. So here we go. May we slow down, listen to our bodies, and relate to each other in mindful ways. Just that. And even though it's just that, it might be hard to do that. So I want to offer that if in this moment, slowing down just a little bit, maybe stretching out a little bit, maybe just looking around your desk or your workspace, you might have noticed in this moment that you might need some water, you need to stretch, you might need to just get up and go to the restroom real quick. Whatever you might need, listen to that. Bring your full body into this space, whatever's going to allow you to get comfortable and safe enough. And then from this space, we hope we can connect with each other in a mindful way. And what I wanted to say about mindful, which I'm in the process of learning, what does this mindfulness really means? I heard from a teacher of mine, an indirect teacher of mine, Lamarad Owens, Buddhist monk, who just recently wrote a book, Love and Anger, which I never saw those two words together, but he really makes the case of mindfulness is exactly when we allow ourselves to create some space so that we spend more time being curious of what's going on versus reactive to what might be going on. And so that slowing down and staying curious space is really mindfulness. And so what I hope we can practice is to be here curious together and slow together, and that we can relate to each other in these ways. And again, we'll speak more about how that plays into cultures of care in just a second. Okay. One of the things we definitely wanted to anchor on when we were trying to figure out, like, okay, what does this culture of care really mean? How do we care for each other's needs in spaces where we know sometimes it's hard to meet all the needs we have, or what, and how do we meet that collectively? And so what we thought about was this real central need to, first and foremost, actual honoring the lives of the people that work in schools, period, as the youth say, right? Like, period, and that's it. Oftentimes, right, in my practice, for sure, in my experience, it's been where all of us work in schools and in programs and organizing with youth, where the focus and care is in how we can help students and how do we share caring practices or create caring practices for kids. And often we forget about how we're relating to each other, whether the adults are feeling honored and witnessed and valued, you know, for who they are and what they bring every day. And when we miss that part, it's just normal that we're going to be practicing probably not being as caring as we would like to be to the students that we're serving, because our needs are not being met in any given time. And so we're much more reactive versus intentional about the things that we're doing. And as we know, those kids watch us every day and they see the way the adults are getting along or not getting along. They'll know if you broke up with someone, if you got married with someone. They know how to read us, you know, from the very little ones to obviously the high schoolers. And so we really like to anchor on this kind of universal wheel of human needs. And what this slide is, this mandala, is exactly that, is this assertion that says every single human being, adults included, right, have all these needs, and we're trying to meet these needs as many times as possible throughout our day, throughout our life. And we notice that depending on cultures, some needs will be met, and then in some cultures, it will be quite reduced, where just very little of these needs get met. And so that might result in stress, in disengagement, in vicarious secondary trauma, in burnout, and all the different things that happen when our needs are not being considered. And so that's what we're going to spend some time doing, about how does that actually look in practice? How, if in concept that all makes sense, right? How do I actually put that into practice in the actual everyday actions or every moment actions? And so that's what we're going to spend some time, again, diving a little bit deeper and hopefully providing you with the way that us at the Meaning Makers like to do that. And that to us is really a framing for creating trauma-informed and healing-centered spaces so that we can create these cultures. So together. Yeah.
That's awesome. Judy. Yeah. I'm wanting to even just pause and if people have things to share in the chat. I think it was said, but we'll just say it again. Please use the chat as a place to amplify things that are resonating with you, ask questions, bring up connected points, whatever. Really make use of that space. I'm just wanting to provide a moment of processing, because I know when I look at this wheel, one of the things I do on any given day is just kind of skim around it and notice if there are any words that are particularly popping out to me in that moment. With the assumption, like Judy said, that we are all of this all of the time, right? That we have needs for all of these things all of the time, which can feel a little overwhelming. And so one of the ways that I use this tool, that we just use this practice, is just noticing, is there something that's standing out to me right now? For me this morning, it's a lot of like trust and peace of mind. And so just inviting folks, if that resonates with you, to think about what might be a need that feels particularly important to you right now. Maybe because you have a lot of it in your life, or maybe because you're wanting some more of it. All right. So like Judy said, we're trying to figure out always, how do we put this into practice? This practice of really honoring the wholeness of the adults, of the people who work in schools. So one of the things I wanted to bring to the forefront, and maybe some folks are really familiar with Judith Herman's work on trauma and recovery. We find this process, this way of understanding a process of recovery, really helpful, even when we're talking about recovery from things that are maybe what we might call I don't know how I feel about this term, so you all can check me on it, but like the everyday traumas, the everyday overwhelming experiences, things that we might not in a moment recognize as experiences that overwhelm us, but perhaps in fact they are. And so we find this model really helpful to remind us of how moving through overwhelming experiences, anything that we experience as too much, too fast, too soon, right? Anything that overwhelms us, there really is a process of returning to a place where we can make new meaning of what that experience is, and reconnect to who we are, underneath and beyond that experience. So this model really reminds us of that process, and particularly of this first phase of the process of the need for safety and stabilization. So I'm thinking of, in this moment, as many of us are either already in the midst of the kind of newness of virtual learning, or in the midst of trying to adapt to some kind of hybrid situation, just really landing on the importance of safety and stabilization before we can necessarily make meaning and integrate everything that this new reality means. And what Judith Herman reminds us is that without a felt sense of safety and stability, meaning we have access to the resources that help support us to feel safe, access to the relationships that help support us to feel safe, and stability in the sense that we don't necessarily feel great all the time, but we have what we need to be able to return to a sense of safety and connection. And she really reminds us that in order for any of these other pieces of the process of recovery to happen, the piece of remembering and mourning, where we're able to maybe feel some of the feelings or process some of the memories that we couldn't in the moment, and for us to reconnect and integrate those experiences so we can move forward with kind of new meanings and a sense of identity and community, we really need to keep in mind how important the safety and stabilization are. And so you'll notice as we kind of move through what we're offering today, that there is a real attention to the felt sense of safety, belonging, inclusion, in everything that we're hoping to offer. All right. And so in that spirit, this is something that we've shared, talked with Lara, learned from Lara, worked with Lara around so much, this concept of process, and this idea of process over product. And so what we want to offer about this is that it's most often not our intentions or our plan or our goals that is radically off the mark, but a lot of the time it's that we don't necessarily make the time and space, have the time and space, or offer the time and space to think about how we get there. And so this cartoon kind of epitomizes this for me, especially when we're talking about our work with kids. I'll just read it. It says, "Honey, when you grow up, I want you to be assertive, independent, and strong-willed. But while you're a kid, I want you to be passive, pliable, and obedient." And so a humorous way of just highlighting, like lifting up, kind of nudging us, there's often a contradiction in between, where we all collectively say we want to go and become these communities of care that value social emotional learning, that are trauma informed, that are healing centered. But we really need to look at our process of how we get there. And particularly I know for myself, as someone who lives in a white body, and all of the power and privileges that entails in this society, in addition to economic privilege, that if I'm not in constant reflection about the how, I'm very likely to reproduce some of the harmful dynamics of systems that cause harm. And this is true for me as an individual, and this is true, we believe, for people working together, that if we're not really thinking about our process, we might unintentionally reproduce these same dynamics that perpetuate harm and systemic harm. And nobody says that better in my mind than Audre Lorde. When Audre Lorde said this, she was referring particularly to the systems and the tools and the practices that disconnect us from each other and lead to the dehumanization of one another. And it really rings true, especially when we're talking about creating cultures of care in schools, that we need other tools. The master's tools will never dismantle the master's house. We need other ways of doing things, other processes that embody the kind of world that we're hoping to create. And really the kind of hard reality that it's not enough to say, like, well, when we get there, right? When we have equity, when we have, when we have all of our demands met, then we can start practicing care. We have to actually practice with those tools now to create that world. And so that is really where the emphasis on process over product comes in for us. I'm going to pause for a second. Oh, that's Judy in the chat. Yes, thanks, Judy, for amplifying that. All right, Judy, take us there.
I was in a daze just thinking about, thinking about the way, in my past lived experience, how that was actually lived at work, at every day, and the things I had to do, especially in my position as a principal, while I came into that position thinking like, I have all the ideas and I just want everyone to be treated right and equity to exist. I realized really quickly that I was in this position of power that was real, that was seen, that was amplified in ways that were not going to be useful for me to really remain in a place where I would be able to consider the actual needs of others first before I was tasked with making all the decisions. And so if there's a principal or a school leader here today, I just want you to know that I see you and I witness that very difficult thing to do when we're in these systems that replicate this power over dynamic that I wanted to break down a little bit. You might have heard the power over versus power with dynamic. It's common in a lot of the practices of like nonviolent communication. But this, what it in its gist is that most of us, all of us, are actually in positions of power, have power, power over something, power over someone at any kind of given kind of relationship in our life. And if we're not mindful of that power, then we are therefore not mindful, right, at what it's gonna conduce, what it's gonna create, what actions I'm gonna do. So in understanding power in this simple way might allow us for more room and more abundance to share that power and shift that hierarchy with other people. And so what it is, in that mandala that I showed earlier around the universal human needs, it's ensuring that that we are meeting as many needs as possible for as many people as possible in any given time, right? That would be a dynamic that's power with, that your needs matter as much as my needs, and how can I create a situation, an experience, a relationship, a program, an agenda, all the things, ensuring I'm thinking about all this versus I have all these needs. The state is telling me I need to do this. My boss just said we don't have time, X, Y, and Z. I have good intentions, what Michelle said earlier, right? I have those good intentions, but I just need to do it. And then I didn't consider how might I have met more needs for more people at this given time. And so I'm operating from a power over dynamic versus a power with. And I think it's also very common in the classroom as teachers. I mean, how often did I find myself saying like, hey guys, I need you to, get in your seats. I need you to X, Y, and Z. I need all the things I needed students to do for me to feel safe enough, comfortable for like learning to happen, and not realizing that what am I teaching even in that statement, in that moment around power and what I need. So I think that this is just really important to pause and notice. I know when I first it was like boom, an aha in all my life. I literally had to think about my relationship with my husband and how often I use certain strategies and techniques to get my needs met over his. And yet I'm thinking, we have a great relationship here. And I'm like, I didn't even hear for what he wanted. And maybe I'm justified. And so that, my personal relationship, right? And then obviously my working relationships, and then the way I related to youth and kids. So I just want to pause here to also say, if you're having a moment where you're even thinking of like, what? You mean as many needs as possible for as many people as possible? Oh, that's impossible, right? It's common that we might get to places where like, that's just too much. Well, nothing would get done. We're just kind of going to get stuck there. It's hard to do. I want to echo that because those are the sounds and voices that I heard in myself. And I just realized what it is. It's quite simple for me. It was that I'm just not practiced at thinking about things this way. It's not because it's actually impossible to do it in this way, or, it's just I'm not practiced in it. And because our systems in general, governmental systems, right? The systems of oppression and exclusion in our societies, the way those things appear in our roles, in our careers, have been so top down, so power over versus power with. Of course, I'm practiced at living in this kind of way of power over versus power with. So I just wanted to acknowledge that and say that. And I did notice some chat movement going on over here. So I just wanted to pause there so I could get my eyes on anything here. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I'll just say someone was lifting up the trauma-informed principle of collaboration and mutuality, Christine. Yeah, just lifting up that a power with paradigm really, really centers that principle of collaboration and mutuality, that is how we co-create space together.
Yeah. Again, I want to just say that it's a practice, right? It's a process. It's not a destination we're going to arrive to. It's not a product we're going to create. This type of way of being, of embodying fully, takes practice, and it takes some time, and it takes the curiosity and the courage to continue trying. That when I tried, I had the intention, but it didn't. How am I recovering from that? How am I learning from that? How am I reflecting it back and trying it again, versus allowing either shame or fear or worry or concern that I won't reach a destination or get somewhere? How might that inform me to slow down, to listen to my body, so I can actually relate to other people in mindful ways? So yeah, I hope this lands, and we're going to be talking about that in how we actually put it into practice here at the Meaning Makers Collective, and as an offering to you of how might that be useful. You might hear a knock at the door, and I'm trying not to answer. I'm sorry, but we're gonna move with it. I think it.
Do you want me to talk, Judy, or is it okay?
Sure.
Okay.
Well, give me just a second.
Okay.
I think I got it.
Okay,
so
great.
How do we actually, now we're in the how, we kind of been framing we're all here because we know the why, we're all here because of the what we're saying, this cultures of care, but like how do we do this? We're offering that we do this by creating spaces or making space. You know, we use this term a lot of I'm holding a space. I mean, not literally, sometimes maybe, but of how do we hold these spaces? It's about a space that has invitation in it. That often when you're asking people to do X, Y, and Z, that it comes with the tone and actual language of invitation, right? It's kind of like asking, might you consider X, Y, and Z? I wonder if you might want to X, Y, and Z, or simply put, I invite you to X, Y, and Z, right? So that in that invitational language and tone, there's actually some space for choice. That actually a person can feel like, you're giving me an actual choice here in something that feels way less power over. This is starting to make me feel a little bit of power with, that you're concerned and care about whether I might feel that or might not feel that, or you're concerned with, I actually can say no. I can actually say no, and that's not going to be detrimental to my safety, or it's not going to be detrimental to my success or keeping this job or staying, loved and in connection with someone. But that no is a complete sentence. Like just no, thank you, right? I mean, at the thank you there, or no, just that's where I'm at right now. I don't have that, or thanks for the invitation, not right now, whatever it might be. It's so important though to have that choice in there, or to accept it authentically. Because how often, I want to say that too, pause right there, right? How often do we make statements asking people invitationally to do something for us, but the minute they say no because they can't, we're already hurt and bothered and oh my God, and what happened, and what did I do wrong, and now I'm gonna micromanage, or we go into these tendencies of well, wait a minute, was I really authentic in my ask and in my invitation? So unless you're going to be authentic in your invitation, that you're willing to accept the no as an actual complete answer, then don't consider this actually invitational. It's actually now a top down, and you want someone to do something for you. So I wanted to state that too. And then finally, sorry about that dog. If you have dogs, it's one of those days. The curiosity piece that I wanted to kind of just land here, that's important to us. It's about staying curious in any given moment. And I'll say why. We are very practiced at ensuring, especially as adults, we have kind of created our identity. I am Judy, who's X, Y, and Z. Maybe my horoscope, my personality, the way I do things. And it's really hard for me to stay curious about how I might be different, how I might expand who I am in my identity. Right? And then I also tend to sometimes box people into certain spaces. Oh, you're that type of person, or you're that type of teacher, or you're this type of, husband, whatnot. And it's about, no, can I stay curious about, they might also have the ability to stretch a little bit more, stretch out of that comfort zone, but still feel safe enough. Not where you're stretching so much out of your comfort zone that now you're complete, flip lid, worried, not feeling secure. We don't want people in those areas, right? Because then that's us replicating some harm there. But pulling back a little bit more, still stretching though, enough. So it's about that curious space, the pushing and the pulling all at the same time, that Michelle's going to speak about in a couple of minutes. So this is how a process that we invite you that can be put into practice, maybe on an agenda, at a meeting, the way you do things, the way you gather with people, what happens at lunchtime, collaboration time, connection, essentially the whole culture, right? The things we know that create culture, but also the things that sometimes go silenced in the culture, not noticed in the culture. Pause to think about where might those spaces be. And so what we're going to do in the next couple of minutes is invite you to think about how these kinds of elements, the invitation, the curiosity, and oh my God, I forgot the choice. Gosh, the choice. How might they have lived so far in your spaces or in your lived experience in any place? So we're going to spend some time here in a breakout room. We're going to ask folks, and these questions will be put on the chat box so that you could see them in your breakout room, to maybe spend some time here with someone new that you might not know that's here with us today, to maybe answer. I'm going to invite you, right, to try to talk about this. But if these don't feel right for you, maybe talk about what's up for you, what's resonating. But we want to offer, when might you have experienced a culture of invitation, curiosity, and or choice? Pretty broad, but kind of specific. And then when you notice, or you're bringing up that memory or that moment or that space or that situation or that relationship, what elements made or might make that experience possible? So if you have a hard time thinking about, like, well, actually, I have never really experienced that. Let's say you're having a real lived experience of, like, you haven't had a lot of practice here. It's okay. Think about what might make that experience possible. Like, what might you need? What are some needs that we're missing that might be able to create a space like this for you? There was also some movement in the chat. Anything I should notice, Michelle? Just want to make sure I'm
a little summary, just folks saying, let me scroll up for a second. Yeah, noticing that there are, like, ways of languaging invitation. So asking what questions might you have, and how that's surprisingly different from asking any questions. There's like a spirit of curiosity there. There's like an assumption, kind of, you're implying an assumption, like, yeah, it's okay if you have questions. Of course, you probably have questions. What questions might there be? I'm elaborating now on what people wrote in the chat.
Okay.
But yeah, just really, it seems like resonating with the invitation, with the curiosity, around curiosity, how my truth might not be the truth.
Oh yes.
Kind of shifting that assumption about what the truth is and who holds it. Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
Okay. So let's jump in. We're about to spend about 10 minutes. Gosh, we're trying to stay within time. You know, we have a little bit more to share after that, but we're going to spend about 10 minutes in the breakout rooms. Make friends, say your name, where you're at, where you're located, where you might be, and then just jump right into these questions that we're offering, or anything else that might be resonating for you. Okay. And I'm going to put those
try
questions.
to send the questions to the breakout rooms as a message.
Yep.
Well,
yes. Okay. Perfect. Thank you. Jenna, did you need me or Michelle to join a breakout room? Because I got the notice, or?
It's okay. You don't have to. It's up to you.
I don't. I stay here so that I can drive the ship, but it's up to you guys.
Okay. Okay. Maybe you need to put it back up, Michelle. Welcome back, everyone. I think you're slowly coming in. Let me look at my participants' numbers so I could see.
The breakdown, the rooms give them about 45 seconds to close.
Okay.
So they'll be in soon.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Yep, now they're all coming back.
Great. Awesome. Welcome back, everybody. Hope that that was some meaningful time to connect, and you can feel free, if there are insights or things that came up in your breakout chat that you want to just amplify and share with the wider group, please feel free to drop those in the chat. In the last kind of leg of our session today, Judy and I wanted to share some of, you were all speaking about what might some of the elements of a culture or a space or a community where you would feel and experience that sense of invitation, of curiosity and choice. We want to share what what some of the elements of our process are, and offer these to you as things to consider, things to practice, things to reach out to us about. And we draw a lot of inspiration when we think about our process. We draw a lot of inspiration from nature, from the natural world, from how things move and change and evolve and interact in nature. That really grounds us in how we approach processes that feel connected and spacious. So a few of these things, moves that we use that create space. So the first one that I wanted to offer, and this kind of references back to the intention that we mentioned at the beginning, we really feel that it's become important for us in our practice to begin any space by acknowledgement of where and when we are in time and space. We know that a lot of the times we have so much on our plate, and maybe in some of the cultures that we work in, there's a tendency to just dive right into an agenda because we have so much to get through. That phrase kind of sounds very familiar to me. We've got a lot to get through. Let's dive right in. And we really feel like that misses something that is a kind of an inherent part of what allows us to feel safe and connected, which we know are foundational to any kind of like learning or building of authentic relationship. And part of that is an acknowledgement of where and when we are in space and time. And one practice that both Judy and I actually are working on really incorporating is an acknowledgement of the land and the people whose native land this is, and an acknowledgement of the harm that has been done and that continues to be done when we don't acknowledge people's relationship to place. So here I am in Santa Barbara now on the land of the Chumash people, land that was not ceded, right? Relationship to land that was broken by systems. And so I know that my acknowledgement is not perfect, but one of the practices that I'm really trying to integrate in this moment of orientation is making that acknowledgement, making that known. And as we acknowledge the land that we're on, particularly if we're here to do work that is about social and emotional learning, about healing, about connection, acknowledging that context is important, because we recognize that that's part of what we're here to do is dismantle systems that cause harm, repair harm, and build systems and relationships that are healing. And so we think about what we're here to do and what relations and who has made it possible directly or indirectly for us to do this. In a school setting, this might look like acknowledging the community that the school is in, even when we're virtual. Like who are the people that we're here to serve, to build with, to build power with, and who in our own lives makes it possible for us to show up to do this work, right? Who's taking care of something else so that we might be here right now. And really grounding in how those relationships connect to our purpose and what we're here to do. And once we've kind of built that context, that sense of orientation of where we are and who we're here with and who we're here in service of, we come to our intention and what will we practice to honor our purpose and to honor those relationships. And that's really how Judy and I arrived at our intention of slowing down, listening to our bodies and relating to each other in mindful ways. So really thinking about the importance of opening spaces with acknowledgement and orientation. This is one of our practices. Another practice that we use whenever we're planning something, whenever we're thinking about whether it's a one-on-one coaching session or whether it's professional development or a team meeting or something like this, we always speak about this concept of flow. So Judy and I will always be like, what's the flow? What's the flow going to be? When are people going to be feeling this way? When might we be given opportunity for sharing or connection? And this word has really what it breaks down to is creating some kind of balance between strategies where we're informing, kind of maybe confronting with new information, looking at data, reading a text, presenting, right? This kind of direct instruction, those kinds of strategies, which are super important, right? But balancing that with strategies that are more around evoking. So, you know, asking for reflection, opportunities for connection, for exploring how things resonate with us personally, for witnessing one another, right? Like just cultivating empathy. And then integration strategies. So things where we're giving people time and space to process an experience, to notice themes, to notice patterns, to give opportunities to analyze and make connections, and to envision what might come next. And so when we think about putting together agendas or plans, we really try to center this concept of flow. What's the flow gonna feel like? So offering that to you as well. And Judy is gonna speak a little bit about embodied practice.
Very little because of time, but I'll say this, like the importance of bringing this whole body into any given place is a practice, and it's hard. And for some of us, we've even found safety in disconnecting from our body in order to be present. So I want to acknowledge that too, because that's related to our lived experience, to our identities and places of power, and, you know, mistrust and, you know, harm that has been caused, especially as Black, Brown, Indigenous people of this country and of the world. So I want to say that it's hard to do, but that when we're actually choosing different practices for embodiment, it really allows us to be curious, stay curious in a place of where can I expand some more in my body to actually get to a place of relaxation, of more control actually, but feeling better, and then therefore actually being mindful to other people, because first we have to really be mindful of our body, of where we're at in a given moment. So what we call this kind of in our practice is the self-care torta. If you're Mexican or traveled to Mexico or have eaten Mexican food, you might have tried the torta, which is what I would translate maybe in English as a Mexican sandwich. The bread is different, and that's what makes it a torta, but it's this layer, this metaphor for layering, a checking in, a reaching for a resource that might help you, and at the end, coming back and just noticing, did it shift your thoughts, your minds, your feelings, your vibe, your own flow? So by me thinking of a torta, it helps me think of like, how am I, you know, like a torta in any given moment? And how am I creating spaces and opportunities for people to practice this? So you might notice, just even in this moment, where might your stress level be right now? Is it different than when we first started, you know, the session today? Did it shift? Did it move? How do you know? What sensations is your body telling you? Any feelings, thoughts, behaviors? If you're still a little stressed right now, is that serving you? Is this good for you? Maybe a distinction between is it good for my ego, or is it actually good for myself, right? Because sometimes the ego wants to be in control, but it's important to notice that. If you're not feeling good, if it's not, you know, helpful, reaching for something, trying something new. If it is, keep going with that. Did it work? Did it not work? And then just how do you know? Again, always returning to the how do you know that it shifted? Why do we do this? Because it's a practice to slow down. It's not something that a lot of us are practiced in. So I offer it as yet another practice to actually scaffold the slowing down in your mind and in your body to be fully present. And again, it's something that Michelle and I do at all our type of presentations and coaching and interactions, and in our relationships with husbands or partners or sisters. It's what we do. So again, another offering here to embody these practices. So yes, I hope all of this kind of landed. Oh yeah, Michelle. Yeah,
Go ahead.
No, because you have something really cool to say about this design that I can't say it as cool as you said it. Yeah.
Yeah, this is something that we also want to ensure that we do even when time is short. This image here really illustrates something, a principle that's really important to us, which is the importance of closure. So when you look at this image, I asked Judy earlier, take a look at this image. What do you see? And she was like, I see a square and 4 circles. And then we noticed how actually the image doesn't really, there's no lines connecting the square. The 4 circles aren't actually there, but our mind is telling us that's what we're seeing. And so we use this just to illustrate this idea of closure and the importance to our nervous systems, to the way we make meaning as human beings, that we create. Yes, thank you, Gestalt. Yes, that we create closure and meaning because it's part of how we operate, how we move through the world. And so offering in as a closing, as a way to integrate what we learned, we'll use this strategy today. So for those that are here and able to stick with us for just a couple more minutes, in the chat, we'll just invite you to share any one of these things, or all three of them if you're feeling very enthusiastic. But think about one thing that you'll take from this session that goes in your heart. So something that was like a meaningful insight that feels like it lives and lands right here in your heart. One thing that might go in your pocket. So maybe it's one of the strategies we shared, a helpful idea or a tool. And then one thing that might go on your to-do list. So an action that you feel moved to take. And just offering that you can share all of those, any one of those. Someone sees 4 Pac-Man characters. Love that. Closure doesn't apply to you. Yeah, so just taking a moment to reflect on one thing or 3 things or 2 things, and go ahead and share in the chat if you want to. That connection and the strength of your breakout friends. Yes. And slowing down, embracing curiosity. Go back and watch the video of this meeting. The acknowledgement of space and of land. Yeah, I think if there is one big takeaway, at least for me, it is really chewing on and sitting with and like letting that sink in about how much time and space we actually need to process and make meaning of our experiences, and really taking that into whatever space you're working in. Great.
Yep. Darle sentido a la vida. Sorry about that. It just came out. giving life sentiment, no? Darle sentido at what we do every single day. Yeah, sorry, I cut you off, Michelle. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, if Lara has things to say to close out, and just thank you for your time. Thank you for your company. We're happy to be here.
Thank you so much, you guys. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with us. I love you guys. And I just want to remind everyone that we do have a YouTube channel. So all of these get posted there. So, give Jenna a couple hours. She'll put it up there. And all of these can be rewatched at any time. And yes, thank you, Michelle, for putting your website on there. That was the last thing I was going to say. Make sure that people know how to find you guys.
Yes.
And they can follow up with you with more questions and more resources if they need to. Instagram, right? And we're going to work on them getting a Twitter account.
Yeah, Twitter.
We're going to get them
soon. Yeah.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much. And we'll be back next week with the people who made the movie Listen and the Listen Project. So look for the blog about that. And I will see you then. Until then, take care of yourselves and be well. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good day. Eat a torta if you've never had one.